All right, so let's jump in with Ma's blessings. Um, Here in number 5. Nope, we did that one. Oh, we talked about that was that great statement. Contentment is the greatest virtue or the greatest treasure, and there's no other like it. And then patient like the earth, no treasure equal to contentment.
We
All
are
right,
supposed to start 9.
number 9. Yes, here we are, number 9. All right. I'm tempted to give you my vlog for tonight because I'm so excited about the material in it. If I'm not careful, I won't be able to shut up about that either. So here we go. Number 9. You see, my son, it is not a fact that you will never face dangers. Difficulties always come, but they do not last forever. You will see that they pass away like water under a bridge.
Maharaj, that reminds me you were supposed to sing that song.
Yes, I know. I was supposed to drag my piano in here, but if you look at my room, I don't even have room to walk back and forth anymore. I got so much stuff in here. Yes, but I still want to do that. It will happen. It will definitely happen. So this notion, though, that you will never face dangers, this temporariness of things, Mother reassures us, Thakur reassures us. Actually, all of the great sages really make a point of this is a big part of discernment, is always remembering, never forgetting that all of these things that belong to the changing world. Oh, here it goes. See, Mother is pushing. I think we're going to talk about the vlog here. It's coming up. It's not staying down. But Mother, that uh, this temporary nature of the world, the mind world that we live in, the thought world, the constant changing thoughts, which are the world we live in, are not first of all not real. They're just thoughts. All objects that we think are sense objects or material objects, they don't have an existence of their own. They exist only in mind, and we are within the mind. Yeah, we are within the mind, I guess. Pure mind, because pure mind is Brahman. Certainly Brahman's not within us. We are within Brahman, and if we are that, we are the container of all things. So yeah, that's hard to talk about, hard to say. But this changing world is within our mind, and it's constantly changing, and it's really just thoughts. It exists really only as thought waves within the universal mind. And to always understand that it's temporary. So when things get tough, when things get difficult, uh, you can just know they pass, and that they are insubstantial, that they are not as big as they seem. Our thought world seems real. Look at it. Everything we're looking at right now is thought only. It's within mind. And so it's not real. There's a great story of a Swami who was driving a car here in the United States. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Tagatananda told this story, maybe. Anyway, it was a lunchtime story in the monastery in San Francisco. And he said that he was driving a car and he lost control of the car and it started veering all over the place. And he says, I just took my hands off the steering wheel and pulled my legs up and sat cross legged on the seat and just prayed to Mother. And he said, miraculously, the car went off the road but didn't hit anything and nobody was hurt. And so he just realized it's out of control. I can't do anything. And in that split second, he just immediately pulled on, sat up, and started doing japam in the middle of an accident as it happened. And I thought that's exactly how we live our life. It's like our knowledge of the nature of things runs so deep in us that when things come to the most intense moment they possibly can, right, just you're heading into a car accident, and that speed at which that happens, to have that frame of mind and that understanding of the nature of the world, to take your hands off the steering wheel, pull your legs off of the pedals, and sit cross-legged and start your japam. Wow, that's exactly what Mother's talking about, and that's exactly what she wants us to do with a verse, with a teaching like this. That when things get really hard, know that they're not real, that they change, they pass, that they are manageable. and that they won't last forever. They pass under you like water under a bridge. And we see that great danger that he was in became just a great story about the water under the bridge, a great teaching for us. And so mother is that way. I can't say that I'm the one that knew that, but certainly I'm seeing it everywhere. That mother is playing and joyfully playing with our lives. What we call our lives, our ego calls it our life. But mother's living in us. It's not us living this life, it's mother in us. And the ego spins off from that. The ego kind of comes off like a vapor. When you add heat to a pot of boiling water, the steam comes off of it. Well, when mother is living in the material world, the steam comes off of it, off of that experience for her, and that steam is our ego. That steam is our taking an identity out of that experience of mother becoming the particular. And so we take that steam, we are that steam, that idea of a self separate from everything. That's foolish and ridiculous, but that's where we take our identity from. And so mother is living this life through us and just letting us know this is the nature of things. And when it gets difficult, when you don't understand, when you lose your control, understand this passes. This isn't real. This is just a game, just the divine play for fun, like clowns tumbling, Swamiji says. So tumble and enjoy. And when you're finished, you'll go home. It'll be finished. Don't be afraid, she says. Human birth is full of suffering, and one has to endure everything patiently. What else can we do, right? That ego forms when there's resistance in the mind, and all thoughts are a form of resistance. All thoughts are a form of resistance to the moment. True acceptance of the moment is peace, it's silence, it's contentment within. No thoughts arise, no resistance arises. We feel that strength, we feel that peace, we feel that presence. We know the nature of things. And human birth is full of suffering. It's the nature of being here. That suffering that mother really talks about is this, ego is that suffering. Ego is the notion of being separate from God. That is pure suffering. That's true knowledge. That's what brings us to our renunciation. We finally realize that this idea of being ourself that we so enjoy, this idea of being a person separate and apart from the whole, the fun that we have with that, when we get that spiritual vision, when that eye opens, we know that that's just pure and only suffering. The true bliss of life, the true bliss of isness, of being, lies in that surrender of the steam, accepting that mother alone is, and that this is her play and her frolic of great joy with no consequences. That's the freedom in there. And if we can do that, oh, here it comes. This is the vlog. Anyway, I'm not going to do it. Just to prove you wrong, Kieran. Of course, we're not over yet. I've still got to maintain some self-control for
You
30.
will, Swamiji.
It's true. It's true. It's going to come out because she's dancing around it here already. So one has to endure everything patiently, right? And she just told us that we have to be patient like the earth. To be patient like the earth is to be bigger than all of our problems, bigger than it's like the bull where the mosquito is, grabs a free ride on his horn and then feels guilty about it and apologizes. Oh, I'm so sorry that I've, assumed that you would be willing to carry me. And the bull is like, what are you talking about? You're a mosquito. Bring your whole family and sit on my horn. I don't care. That doesn't make any difference. That's our nature. We are immense. We are infinity. We are, ever free beings. We are everything. Everything is within us in our true nature. And so to be patient like the earth is exactly that. It's to just be bigger than all your problems. Don't reduce yourself to a single point amongst a million thoughts that affect you. become the mind that produces the thoughts and understand their context is meaning, that makes them meaningless in their size. That all of this, the moment that you are free from the body, in that moment you come to a great understanding that all of this stress, all of this anxiety, all of this whatnot, isn't even worth a thought at that time. It's gone. It's done. It passed. It went under the bridge. And now you are free, and you can enjoy your nature. You can enjoy the bliss of that ever-present divinity, that ever-present isness. One has to endure everything patiently, taking the name of God, right? Because that's how we reach that knowledge. That knowledge is inherent. It's not a thought knowledge. Oh, I am, this or that. You can do that. But when you sit there and say things like that, it's just another thought amongst millions of thoughts. This idea of the name of God, what that does is it puts a wall between you and the delusion of changing mind. Because for a moment it aligns mind into the name. It doesn't let the mind be the world, be the changing universe that it is all the time for us. That name is a wall that gives you a moment to recede from the effect of all of what is your karma. Your thoughts are your karma. your thoughts are the manifestation of your samskara. And so this little space that the name of the beloved creates for you allows you to experience that silence. And that silence is grace. The silent mind is the purest manifestation of grace. Because in that silent mind, all of your samskaras have no effect, because they require the change of the mind to affect you. And so pure grace is that gift of inner silence when the mind stops, and all of your samskaras are powerless then. They no longer affect you. You are free. And all of your future desires are dissolved, because the future is this moment. This moment is your future. What you do with this moment is what your future is. And so if in this moment you take that grace of the silent mind and sit in the presence of the beloved in that space, pure grace unfolds. And that's why the name of God is the way to endure successfully all the stress, all the troubles of this life. Because when you get that space between yourself and the ever-changing mind and understand I am not that, then you become the bull that's carrying the mosquito, and the mosquito is the changing world, the material world. None, not even God in human form, can escape the sufferings of the body and the mind. We are the container. If you're the container, you can't escape what's contained. But you understand its nature. You understand it to be the dream. You understand it to be just rolling thoughts, which are nothing but a thought, an echo of your past deeds, your samskara. Even avatars, saints, and sages have to undergo the ordeal of suffering, for they take upon themselves the burden of sins of omission and the commission of ordinary human beings, and thereby sacrifice themselves for the good of humanity. We see that expressly since in the life of Jesus, in the night in the Garden of Gethsemane, the night before he knows he's going to be crucified. Can you imagine being in that situation? You know that the next morning you're going to be physically nailed to a cross to die, and there's nothing just about it. It's just going to happen to you. And you see him wrestling, and what does he do? Who does he go to? He goes to the Father. And he says, Father, if there's any way that this can be done in a different way, let's do that. But if this is the cup I have to drink, let me drink it, And so that surrender to our higher nature, that's what Jesus was teaching. That surrender to the higher nature, to accept with equanimity the moment, that is the way to accept even the greatest suffering. That is the way to survive this world. to navigate this world. And she's saying that nobody gets free from it. It's there. It's the reality. And the reality, it's the reality. The reality, it's the condition. Let's put it that way. It's not the reality, but the condition. And so we sacrifice ourselves for the good of humanity. And even us, in a much smaller, the only real difference between us and the avatar is the amount of power, in us. We will never have the power of an avatar. But our lives also, our realization, our surrender of our ego to the self, to Mother in her game, is our sacrifice of ourself for the good of humanity. Why? Because our true nature is only good for humanity. That pure love, that pure wisdom, that divine bliss, that outrageous spark of existence. That, oh my goodness, that is the highest form of service that you can do. Vivekananda says that. He says one sage sitting in samadhi on a mountaintop does more service to humanity than 1,000 volunteers in the hospitals and the prisons and the orphanages. And so, know that. What a beautiful responsibility, what a beautiful potential lies within you. So not just our own, selfish joy of our own realization, which is such a paradox that could never happen. That's why I say nobody realizes God, because the realization is that there is nobody but God. So it is God that realizes God. It is not you that realizes God. And to come to that point is your greatest sacrifice, because you give up your very self, the idea of an ego, the idea of that you are separate and apart, that you have a will, that you have dreams, that you have desires, that you have families, that you have relationships and enjoyments and pains. You surrender the entire story at the feet of the beloved. You give up, and your little self, your little point merges into that universal light, and you become the servant of the beloved, an instrument in the hands of love, an instrument in the hands of true wisdom. And that's the highest ideal that we could ever reach for. People complain about their griefs, their sorrows, and how they pray to God but find no relief from pain. Who me? But grief itself is a gift from God. And there's a perspective to fight for. Your grief is a gift from God. It is the symbol of his compassion. Tell me, who is there in the world who has not had to bear sorrow? Vrinda once said to Krishna, "Who said you are merciful? As Rama, you filled Sita's life with sorrow. As Krishna, you fill Radha's life with sorrow. In Kamsa's prison, your parents weep for you night and day. Yet we call upon you, because he who takes your name has no fear of death." Has no fear of death. And this is the death of the ego. This is key to knowing, because to let go of the ego, to be willing to make that ultimate sacrifice, which is that death, that it is takes that level of trust, to give someone everything that you have, everything that you are, everything that you want, everything that you've experienced, to be willing to lay it down and surrender it completely means you're, as an ego self, as a separate self, your non-existence. It is the death of the ego. And see, that's why, in the Christian Bible, it says that the wages of sin are death, right? That means those people who are drop off the physical body, if you think that's who you are, as the self, as your smaller self dies, you experience that death, and it's a horror, and it's a fear, and it's a terror. But if through grace, if through the silence of the mind, you give it up willingly, You don't resist the moment. You accept it as it is. You take it with great joy and acceptance, knowing that this entire play was fun for you to watch, for you to learn for you to grow from a perspective. then you, because you know you are not engaged in quote sin, which is attachment. That's all sin is. Sin just means attachment. Holding on to things that change and not wanting them to change, that is sin. Looking for your identity in the things that disappear, that go away, that is sin. And if you're holding on to things that go away, you feel that pain, you feel that suffering, you feel that death. And so we take the divine name to remember, to protect us from this changing world, to know our identity of the absolute, unchanging, eternal self. And we have no fear, not only of death, but of anything. Vivekananda says that's how we become fearless. You know, we know what is there, who is there that can harm us if we are now one without a second? Who is there that can be any threat? You know, Vivekananda says that ego is the cause of fear. Ego is the birth of fear. It's composed of fear. We know that from like in the Garden of Eden story. You know, when Adam and Eve have eaten of the senses, have identified them with this through the senses, which was signified by the eating of the forbidden fruit. They've identified themselves with the changing, and the first thing that happens is fear. God comes walking through the garden, and in fear, Adam and Eve run and hide. And so that awful fear, which lies at the very root of ego, it's a fear we all have that's primal. It's deep. It's the cause. It came at your first hint of delusion. This primal fear was born in you, and it is the thing that keeps you dancing, according to your samsaras. It's the it's this body that you take becomes the mode of your sentence for that desire to live through the senses, to be identified by the changing. This body is that mode of your sentence. And so by taking the name, which stops the changing world, by stopping the mind, by stopping thought, we come to hear our true nature, because in that silence, pregnant with wisdom, pregnant with the presence of God, in that we come to know in an instant, fully and completely, our nature. And there is no more fear. There is no more separateness. There's no more division. There's only the sweetest, deepest, most beloved experience of love. The mother of the universe is the mother of all. From her have come out both good and evil. Yes, all of the waves of the mind, that is Shakti. The mind, the active mind, the noisy mind, that is Shakti at play. You know, the silent mind is Brahman, the shining absolute. But the active mind, the mind with thought waves, that's Shakti, that's her realm. And she is both the good and the seeming evil, you know. And actually there of course we know that there's one without a second. It's neither good nor evil, it's perfection. And that these waves are just as they only become good and evil when the ego is allowed to exist, when the ego perceives them. Because an ego, a particular perspective, which is what the ego is, a particular perspective, because our real perspective is not a perspective, it's a universal. There is no point of perception in when the mind stops, when the thought stops. The witness is no longer particular. It's universal. It sees all simultaneously. And so good and evil return to their natural form, which is a unity, which is just Satchit Ananda. So know that the mother of the universe is everything and everywhere, the good and the bad. Sorry, my sunscreen is running into my eyes. And that's really the that's really the biggest privilege that we have, is that sentence of knowledge right there. The mother of the universe is the mother of all, that this everything is divine, and that we are united by as heirs, not beggars, but as heirs, not as students, as heirs, that we are heirs to the Divine Mother and to all that she is and all that she has. And to me, that is the greatest piece of knowledge. We hear it so much that it sometimes seems like it's ordinary, but that's only because we can't fit it into our thinking mind. It's like that beauty that I saw on that camping trip. Your senses, your mind, the thinking mind cannot hold the wonder of what this means, of the depth, the profound implications of this knowledge that the Divine Mother is everything. Disciple, where does this initiative for good and evil originate? You may say from our previous life, but where is the source of it all? What a great question. Mother, even a blade of grass cannot stir without the will of God, my son. When a creature falls on good times, his thoughts turn to prayer. When he falls on bad times, all is evil. It is all according to God's will. It is God alone who expresses his will through the actions of man. What powers did Naren, Swami Vivekananda, have by himself? It was because God acted through him that he achieved what he did. The Lord knows what he is about to perform, but should a man surrender himself totally at his feet, he will do everything for him. One must bear with everything, because it is all due to cause and effect, according to one's karma, and karma counteracts the effects of one's previous karma. If you do a good act, it cancels out the effects of your evil deeds. If one prays, takes the name of God, and thinks of him, the effects of all evil are canceled. So what's she pointing at? The source of everything is ego. The source of good and evil is egoism, is that particular nature. When you see things from only a perspective of ignorance, informed only by the knowledge of the mind, we tumble. We ride these waves because we don't understand anything about them. One, because there's nothing there to understand. They only appear because of our ignorant idea of being small, of being separate, of being alone, of being weak, of being unable. That this is the source of all this, all that we see. That is what the mind. That's what activates mind. That sense of me and mine, which means that that particular perspective of ego. That is what infects us and causes mind to gyrate and to seem to move and to just be disturbed. As soon as that surrender happens, that storm silences. Like Jesus on the boat in the Sea of Galilee. He's sleeping down in the bow while the boat is almost sinking from this torrential storm. And the disciples, finally, Peter runs down to him and wakes him up. I love that image. Jesus sound asleep. Everybody else is panicking. And Jesus comes up and he comes above deck and he sees everybody running around, screaming, trying to, save everything. And he looks around. The first thing he says, "Oh, you of little faith." And he stretches out his hand and the sea absolutely calms. Everything's suddenly back to normal. He says, "Do you not understand anything?" And this is what the name does to mind. It calms that storm. makes you aware of the abiding peace that is behind everything in the mind, that self that's unchanging, that is the container of all that is, all that seems to be. And he just looks at you and just smiles, but shakes his head. Do you know nothing? Do you have no faith at all? Look, watch this. That's enlightenment, that moment when the Divine Mother, Thakur, raises his hand and in grace gives you that silence, gives you that peace that passes understanding, the peace that cannot be contained in mind, cannot be found in mind. It is the peace that allows the unpeace of change. It's the silence that allows the noise, right? It's the space that allows the objects. That is your nature. Disciple. If God, first of all, let's look at this last little section there where he says, if you think of him, the effects of evil are canceled. Canceled. That doesn't mean fulfilled or that you finally reach your end of your karma. It means at that moment, the way that all of your karma dissipates is not through your actually achieving some certain balance or a perfect balance. It could, if that was possible, and I'm sure that Mother does that for fun with on occasion. But what she's talking about here is canceled. It means that it's canceled. There wasn't a perfection reached. There wasn't an end to the karma. There wasn't a natural subsiding of like, oh, suddenly everything is still. No, boom. By faith and grace, it is canceled. It ends. It's finished. The mind may still be wavy. Things may seem to still be there as they are, but your knowledge of self makes you untouchable, makes you, reveals to you the fact that you cannot be burned, you cannot be wedded, you cannot be harmed. You are eternally free, ever pure and ever beloved. How many times can we possibly be blessed to say that sentence to ourselves? Disciple. If God is the Father and Mother of all, then why does he make us commit sin? Really great question. Mother, no doubt God alone has become all these objects, animate and inanimate. But in the relative world, all beings act and suffer according to their past karma and innate tendencies. The sun is one, no doubt, but its manifestation differs according to objects and places. So the real answer, a real answer, another real answer, is the fact that what is real? All of this play is a dream. Mother's not making God, Mother, Father. They're not making us sin. They're not making us do any of these things. Our refusal to surrender makes us sin. When we grab for the changing and desire it to be unchanging, when we look for our happiness through the changing, when we look at our identity through the changing, oh, I'm a school teacher, oh, I'm a respected person, oh, I'm a rich man, oh, I'm a beautiful woman, oh, I'm a kind person, oh, I'm a great meditator, oh, I'm a wonderful Vedantist. All of these jewels of the changing world that we drape over our limbs and neck, the weight and pain of bearing them is our sin. If for one moment we turn to that unchanging self, the silence within, and says, that is what I am, and we let go of the changing world as unreal and know that we are not affected by it, that it can give us nothing and it can take nothing, at that point we know that freedom. So what was actually done? Nothing was done. It's like in a dream, at night. You can spend the whole night in your dream stacking bricks. When you wake up in the morning, there's no stack of bricks. Doesn't matter how many of them you moved in the dream. That's the nature of this world. Stack your bricks. have a blast. Go for it. But understand, there are no bricks. None of this was actually done. None of this actually happened. None of this actually changed, you know. And so it's not God that makes you do anything. It's the nature of ego to identify itself by the changing. And just that identity, which is up to you. You know, Mother says, you can be free this moment if you want it. And so who can blame that on God? In a sense. And then if you insist on blaming it on God, Thakur's just going to twinkle his eyes and he's look at you and he's going to go, but who are you? Who are you? Disciple, if everything happens according to the will of God, then why does he not annul the law of karma? Why doesn't he annul it? Mother, yes, if he wills, he can shorten the period of evolution, but we do not know his will. You know, that's not to be known as an ego, as an ego self. That's knowledge that it's not that you can't have it. It's that if you had it, you wouldn't exist. There's nothing. The you that you think is you is insubstantial. If God was to hand you that knowledge, you would not have a pocket to put it in. You know, the mind, the particular mind, the mind of the changing, cannot hold it. You know, there's a great on YouTube. There's many of these stories of these near death experiences, and one of the ones that I listened to was about this gentleman. When he came back and he was talking about the experience, he said, when I was in this place, when I was in that place, you know, without the body, he said, I had access to infinite knowledge, to infinite love, to an infinite knowing. He says, and when I took back the body, when I came back into this body, back into this world, he said, the mind could not contain even a fraction of what I knew. There was no way for me to bring that knowledge with me back into this world. He said, I became small and limited again, and I used a very small mind to live this life. And so you see that here, that this is that, you know. There's no way for you to know this here, because there's no you to know it. This knowledge is not relative. This knowledge cannot be objectified, because this knowledge is what you are. Right? It is your very existence. It is your very everything. It is that which makes you substantial. We do not know his will. Let me tell you one thing. There is great complexity in this creation. Indeed. The master does one thing through one man, and another thing through another man. Oh, it is so inscrutable, so unknowable, right? We can't imagine. I mean, it's one of the lectures that I gave in Trabuco many years ago was this notion of how little we are aware of, even of this physical changing world. You know, I said, here all of us are sitting in this room. And if I asked you, are you sitting still? You would be foolish enough to say, yes, I'm sitting still. But in the fact of the matter, you are whirling around the axis of the earth at several 100,000 miles per hour. The earth itself is whirling around the sun at another million something miles an hour. The sun itself is whirling around the center of the galaxy at some unknown, incalculable speed. The galaxy itself is shooting out from some unknown center at some incalculable speed. And you sit here calmly in a chair thinking that all is well. Nobody's driving. Nobody's watching out for things that we might hit at these ungodly speeds. No one knows anything. You have made your world so small, so full of ignorance, and take comfort in that ignorance. You use that ignorance to produce more ignorance that tells you that you are great and independent and able, that you can do it, you can make it happen. And you stay in that very small space that allows you to think that that is true. But in reality, you know less than nothing, less than nothing. And even what you know is only a fraction of what you could know. Everything has to be forced through 5 tiny little cracks called the senses. Do you think that all knowledge in the universe can fit through 5 cracks of your senses and give you anything that you could know to be the whole? No, no. Your ego is beyond tiny, in itself utterly unable and non-existence. It is your ignorance alone and your love of ignorance that allows you to think that you are independent and that you do anything of your own accord. So this is what Mother is talking about. This is what she's revealing to us here. There is great complexity in this creation, and not all of it can go into an ear, an eye, a nose, a mouth, or your touch sensations. Not all of the universe can fit through those 5 tiny holes. The master does one thing through one man and another through another. Oh, it's so inscrutable. There's no way to know this. There's no way to know it. That's why all we can do is become the witness. What does that mean? Stop using the mind to know things. Stop using the body to learn things and to do things. And turn your entire self into an ear, into a witness. Just open everything and see God. That's all. You have no organs of action. What action is there? You are the witness. Use everything you have to see God, not to move a mountain, but to see your beloved. Does it matter in the least to God whether you believe or not? Does it matter in your dream what your dreamer thinks of you? Does it matter at all? Any of the things that happen in the dream, are they of any consequence to you? You know, even the sage Sukadeva was to him like a big ant at the most. Infinite is he. How much can you understand of him? You know, why all these questions? Do you think you could possibly understand the answers? You know, it's like a kindergartner going into a calculus class and trying to even pose a question about calculus. Would he even begin to be able to understand the answer to a question? If he could possibly even form a reasonable question, could he ever understand the answer? Would he have any place to put it? And Mother's turning to this young man. She's saying, what are you doing? What are you asking? Why are you pretending that you could know any of this anyway? You're an ear. Even the greatest of us is less than an ant in this reality of the changing world, of the true nature of things. How much can you understand of him? It is enough to know love. It is enough to know love. It is enough to explore unconditioned love. Know that. Open yourself to that experience. And by faith, perhaps you can stretch your mouth wide enough to get maybe a small piece of this pie. But open your whole self and you become the pie. Pray to God, she says. Pray to God with tears in your eyes. Whenever you want illumination, or you find yourself faced with any doubt, any difficulty, the Lord will remove all of your impurities, will assuage your mental anguish, and will give you enlightenment. That is where we dare not go beyond today. Pray to the Lord with tears in your eyes. And he'll do the rest. You don't have to learn anything, know anything, be anything. Just pray with tears in your eyes. Want it more than you want yourself. Want this truth more than you want your ignorance. That's all that's necessary. And when you come to the point where you want this truth more than you want your ignorance, God himself will give you that enlightenment. Any questions?
Just a comment, Maharaj. What a beautiful meditation this hour has been.
Yes, yes, that's always the way Mother is. Always that way.
And it takes you to explain it to us too. That makes it all the more beautiful.
Mother
Thank you.
using Mother using one man in one way and another man in another, or the woman. Yes. No. All right. Yeah. Okay. So again, no class on Thursday night. Thursday morning we will. There will be a class Thursday morning. Thursday night, no class.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, Thursday night I'm going to be out of town and I'm going to be in a place where there's no internet. So I won't be able to do class. I'll just I'll just say I'm going to be in a tent in the mountains far away.
Hear that.
What's that?
That makes me feel happy.
Oh,
All right.
thank
Be
you,
well.
Maharaj.
Indeed, indeed. See you later. Jai Ma, Jai Thakur, Jai Swami, Jai Jesus.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Swamiji.
Indeed. Good night.